When I speak to a group, what I do is give an overview of the entire taxation process, because I find that people really don't understand taxes. They're angry about taxes sometimes. They're interested in taxes, but they don't fully understand how the process works. And I think that's the most important thing if you're going to have any impact in the situation. You've got to understand how it works. So let me give a brief history of that. I know there's another speaker, and then I'll take questions. I usually have several questions. So there are two responsibilities for the tax commissioner: the motor vehicle registration and property tax. The biggest thing that's happened in motor vehicle registration in the 23 years that I've worked there has been the title tax, which took effect in March of 2013. That changed the way we register vehicles from what we've all been accustomed to. And now you do not pay sales tax on vehicles, and you do not pay ad valorem tax on your birthday. You pay a one-time title tax when you transfer the title. Now, people who buy from dealers are very happy about that because they've been paying sales tax and birthday tax. And now they only pay this one thing, which is very similar to sales tax in amount, and then they don't have birthday tax, so they're all happy. But when they're unhappy is if Rocky buys Lydia's vehicle and he comes to the counter thinking he's going to pay $18 to transfer the title and it's $700. He's really blown away by that, you know. And so it's important that people understand how that's working now. When you buy a vehicle, whether from a dealer or an individual, there is right now it's 6.75% title transfer tax. Next year that goes up to 7%. And it's supposed to stop at 7%, but has the capability to go to 9% based on studies from the state, not the counties, but the state. And the state will control that rate. So right now we're at 6.75. Next year we start at 7%. It should stay there unless the state sees need for a change. That had a very big impact on my office and the offices around the state. Lines were longer. It takes longer to explain to each customer the process. They don't understand. It was kind of chaos for maybe a couple of months. But that has settled down now. The lines have gotten more manageable. Now in Paulding County we're lucky. Normally we only have lines Mondays, Fridays, and at lunchtime. If you're going to come at lunchtime, just expect there's going to be some little line there because we have to go to lunch. We take staggered lunches though, 3 shifts, so that we impact it as little as possible. But you know, when the ladies put their sign up to say I'm going to lunch, boy, they get some unpleasant looks from them. Anyhow, that seems to have settled down. Because of that, I did ask for additional help in my office last year. I know Commissioner Pownell heard that plea from me and the other commissioners, and I did get additional help. That's not something that I ask for often. That's, I think, the second time since I've been in office that I requested it through my budget, and they were able to give me those additional employees, and it's made a big difference. I did want to point out, I know that Ron asked me in a meeting a month ago about my budget that's proposed for this year, because it's showing an increase, and I really couldn't answer his question good last time because I'm thinking, you know, I didn't ask for anything this year. I can't figure that out. So I went back and I found the answer. Last year when we added one of those employees, they didn't do it in the budget. They asked for me to track some numbers for a few months, and then we added it mid-year. So it was not in last year's budget, that employee was not. And the way we were able to add it is the state now pays us to collect this title tax. So in 10 months from September of 13 through June of 14, we had collected $88,000. So for a full year, we would have been over $100,000. And the impact to my budget this year, now that that's added into this year's budget, was $63,700. So we've paid for that. We've paid for that and given more back. So I did want to answer that question, and that's pretty much about motor vehicles. Property tax is the big thing, and it's a multi-step process. The first step is the establishing of your value. The tax assessors do that, and their duties are prescribed by state law. They have to be as close to fair market value as possible. They're audited by the state, and if they are too low, then the county is fined. So that is why the assessors do the job they do. Now, I'm not going to try to sell everybody on assessors, that's their battle. But they have a responsibility to do, and they fulfill that responsibility. So they establish the value. They send you an assessment notice. This year they were mailed on June the 1st. When you get your assessment notice, you have 45 days to appeal that if you feel you should appeal. Now, people say all the time, I want to appeal my taxes. You can't appeal taxes. You can appeal your value on your property if you feel it's unfair. And there are 2 or 3 ways to appeal that now. They've changed that recently. The most common way is you appeal to the Board of Assessors with appeal rights to the Board of Equalization. So the assessors would look at it if you turn in an appeal, see if they feel like they've got it correct, or if there was some error. If they feel they should make a change, they will make a change. And if you agree with them, that ends that process. If you don't agree and you would like to appeal further, it goes to the Board of Equalization, which is an independent board that's appointed by the grand jury. And they will hear the tax assessor's information, they will hear the taxpayer's information, and they will make a decision. If they make a decision that satisfies you, then you can end that appeal then. If you're still not satisfied, you have the right to appeal on to Superior Court. And then that would be the final step. Once you go to Superior Court and there's a decision made, that's the decision. With some commercial properties, there's a possibility now of having an arbitrator, and there are a couple of different avenues to appeal, but those details come from the assessor's office. If you're interested in that, we could get contact information. You could get in touch with the assessors. Now, the appeal process this year ended on Monday, July the 14th. So if you have not filed an appeal by that time, you won't be appealing this year. They will work through the appeals and come up with final values. They turn that over to the tax commissioner, the school board, the commissioners, and the city councils. That's showing them the value they have to tax this year. So now they'll look at their budgets, the commissioners and the school boards, and make a determination about their needs for that year and determine what tax rate they must establish. The state says, before 2008, we were used to values going up, values going up, values going up. And maybe the millage rate stayed the same. But if your value went up and the millage rate stayed the same, that was more tax. So about 10 years ago, the state legislature came up with Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. And they cannot ride on that growth without telling you that. So if the digest goes up, and they're going to leave the millage rate the same, so they're not going to raise your rate, but it's going to cause a tax increase because of the higher value, they have to tell you through advertisement and public hearing that that's a tax increase. And they have 3 public hearings that you can participate in. If they are not going to accept that rise in values, so they roll back their millage rate, then that's not a tax increase, it's neutral. And they don't have to advertise that to you. They still have to advertise the 5-year history of taxation and the time and place of the meeting where the millage rate will be established. Now that's both the school board and the commissioners. I'll tell one thing that happened in 2007 before the election of 2008, is why I can remember that. Because we had a mill increase of 6 mills. You know, all my tax commissioner friends said, you can't survive the election next year. This is the year before the election. People don't understand that it's not you. This is going to be really tough for you. And I felt the same way. But I acted like I act every year, and I explained to people when they would come to us about the concern of that $6 million increase. That's a huge increase.
That's education, right? To the education bond?
It was the year of the fire tax, the education bond, and then they raised the education rate.
Yeah.
And so normally I just tell people, you know, the little story, well, your school board determined that, you should call the school board, or the commissioners determined that. I can help you understand it. If you've got concerns, you can talk to the commissioners. And in a normal year, you know, this face-to-face interaction works. Well, that year I had it typed out. And I had that the assessors were responsible for the assessment, the school board was responsible for the school tax, and the commissioners were responsible for the fire tax. Well, the first day that tax bills went out, I had commissioners and the superintendent calling me at home, very angry with me, saying I was blaming them. Well, I explained that I was not blaming them. I was telling people how the process worked. So that's how the process works. And, you know, I'm not, those commissioners and school board people, I think, have moved on. So, but that is how it works, seriously. So once they advertise to you their millage rate proposal, they have their meetings, they establish their rates. Then it comes to the tax commissioner to apply the tax rate to the assessed value to create your tax bill. So my favorite statement about my responsibilities is, your tax commissioner is constitutionally established as a neutral collector and has no voice in the amount of your tax. So, help spread that word. So after we get the information, we create the tax bills, we bill it out, normally the first week of September. Our due date in Paulding County is November 15th. And after that, that normally in our county collects about 92% by the due date. The unpaid tax after that, they're sent delinquent letters and given a notice that they'll have a lien filed against the property at 90 days. So that happens in February. And that gets us up to about 95% collected. And then the last 5% is by hook and crook. We have to, you know, we do accept payments for people that are under hardship. We try to work with them any way to get it collected, but ultimately, if people are not paying, their property goes to a tax sale. You know, it's not my desire to try to take people's property, but that does happen. We have a tax sale once a month, except in December, and it's the first Tuesday of the month at 11 o'clock in front of the courthouse. So that's kind of a brief description of how the whole process works. I was trying to do it a little quicker today because I know there's another speaker, but I am